The threat of an all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel is intensifying on the northern border with Lebanon. The IDF says tens of thousands of Israeli soldiers are ready to go on the offense.
Well, one expert tells CBN News that time is running out to find a diplomatic solution. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl reports.
As Hezbollah continues to launch artillery and rocket strikes against Israel, the IDF is preparing for an offensive inside Lebanon.
We're more prepared for this than ever before, even for tonight if needed, and we'll continue and strengthen our preparations and our readiness moving forward.
Earlier this week, a Hezbollah anti-tank missile hit a home in Kfar Yuval, killing a 70-year-old woman and her son. Due to the threat from Hezbollah, some 100,000 Israelis evacuated their homes and communities in northern Israel. Many are living in hotels.
We are much closer to the border than most of the kibbutzim in the Gaza Strip. And it's scary, I must say. And we need to be sure that we're safe in order to come and live here again in our homes.
Former IDF spokesman Jonathan Conricus told CBN News that Israel has responded to attacks with restraint, but time is running out for diplomacy to avert a full-blown war.
The time really is now for any such deal to come into effect. What Israel, I think, needs in order for Israeli civilians to go home to their homes is for a 7 or 10 kilometer buffer zone to be created inside Lebanon, where there's simply no access for the worst Hezbollah terrorists to get close to the border.
Conricus says Hezbollah is much stronger than Hamas.
We're talking about 130,000 rockets, we're talking about bigger payloads, and we're talking about much bigger range, including high-quality weapons that can strike specific locations in Israel.
So far, UNIFIL, the UN peacekeeping body that has been in southern Lebanon since 1978, hasn't managed to keep the border safe. Israel needs to deal with Hezbollah's massive arsenal.
But the most imminent threat is access to Israeli civilians across that 80-mile border that separates between Israel and Lebanon, and that is non-negotiable.
Meanwhile, in Gaza, medical aid is being delivered to dozens of hostages held by Hamas in a deal brokered by France and Qatar. The Biden administration this week sent a National Security Council official to help negotiate another deal for the release of more hostages. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, if there was ever a time to pray for Israel, it's now. And you look at the threats from Hezbollah in the north, the threats from Iran, where they are saying we need to wipe Israel out, we need to drive them into the sea. Then the attack, horrible attack, October 7th, that will live in history as the worst terrorist attack in Israel's history. And they're still holding the hostages. They're still having this. And it's now threatened to turn into a regional war. And the Houthis out of Somalia are going after international, out of Yemen, are going after international shipping. Now, here's something that you may not know. I didn't know it until this morning. There's a difference in State Department registrations where you can be listed as a foreign terror organization. That's the most severe. But you can also be listed as a designated global terror organization. On the name, it doesn't seem to make any difference. But they're going to designate, they took it off. President Trump designated the Houthis as a foreign terror organization, which meant you could seize their assets, that it was a crime to do business with them. They couldn't get visas into the United States. The State Department is now saying, well, we're going to designate them a global terror organization. Trump removed all the restrictions, and the excuse was there's some kind of humanitarian crisis there, and if we have these restrictions, they can't get the aid that they need. So they're saying now we're going to reinstate them as a global terror organization. But here's the kicker, and it's a big one. They can still get visas into the United States. they can still operate bank accounts here. It's not a crime to aid them. And the SEAL teams just boarded a ship with weapons loaded to the gills for them to take and then try to stop international shipping. It makes no sense to me that we would actually help people get arms so they can attack our Navy ships. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But here's what the military is doing while the State Department seems to be handicapping by air and sea. The U.S. military is stepping up efforts to attack and to stop these attacks on commercial shippings in the Red Sea. Mark Martin has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Mark?
Gordon, U.S. warplanes Tuesday carried out another strike against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, destroying ballistic missiles ready for launch. And the Pentagon is now releasing details of an operation in the Gulf of Aden last week. The U.S. military boarding a boat and seizing Iranian-made missile warheads and other materials headed for Yemen. A search and rescue operation is still underway for 2 Navy SEALs who are missing after the nighttime raid in rough seas. The U.S. Senate soundly rejected a resolution aimed at U.S. military aid to Israel. Senator Bernie Sanders brought the measure to the Senate floor. It required the State Department to produce a report examining charges that Israel is violating human rights in its war against Hamas, and whether U.S. aid to Israel violates restrictions on aid to foreign militaries accused of, quote, gross violations of human rights. 72 senators voted to kill the resolution, while 11 voted for it. 17 senators were absent, many due to travel delays caused by the weather.